It was an electricity shock. Yeah, that shocked me into realizing what under heaven I ought rather do. Let me just give you understanding concerning just a little bit of a context, okay? Like I said, I didn't want this. I was pressurized into taking it. Once the pressure had lifted, I saw where they were coming from, where especially my mom was coming from with all of the harassment of my person. I looked beyond the harassment and saw where it was coming from. So that place I had to arrive at. I had to convince myself and humble myself and come and speak in videos for long amounts of time about how I must humble myself and I must do this and wada fish face, etc. Recognize your heart, yourself, your place, your position when you are in Pharaoh's household. Don't be as entitled, otherwise the world hates disciples. They're not gonna just award you stuff on a silver platter, so you gotta humble yourself. I had to get to that point, alright? So if it was not for this little electric shock, I never would have gotten to that place. So God through essentially evil intentions, alright? Romans 8:28, all things work out together for the good of them who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. It worked out ultimately. My family know who I am. They're the ones, unlike Pharaoh, that changed my diapers. They're the ones, unlike Pharaoh, with whom I grew up. They're the ones, unlike Pharaoh, that essentially know what travesty it would be for me to have worked the job that they were trying to give me. Bayazi. God, but they were the ones that were trying, however, to get me to that position, to accept it, to embrace it, because they want to convince themselves that God is not there for me, yo. They want to convince themselves that there is nobody coming for them. They want to convince themselves that the sins that they have committed against God are not going to be met with comeuppance. They thoroughly don't want to believe in recompense. They are nihilistic. They have sinned and they need to repent. They need to give their lives to God. They need to flip over and truly do a 180. They need a genuine metanoic experience. They need that. And they wanted to manufacture a fake deliverance for me. And so stay in their sins. So they're in dire need of being exposed for this thing. They need and God also needs to have exposed them or blocked their endeavors so that they can see Uguti Evatum. You can't deliver from the hand of God. Not only can you not deliver from the hand of God, but you can't manufacture a deliverance that God has not manufactured. You cannot chart the course of a daughter or a son of God's life. You cannot chart their lives in a way that is apart from what destiny God will have them walk in. If you are not aligned to the purpose of God in this person's life, you on that day must just step up, move out the way, or you will be moved out the way. Okay, and these people were trying to basically give this story a conclusion. They were trying to give it a finality, an end. They wanted to give a conclusion to a story that, frankly, they participated in the mutiny of writing themselves in as villains, and they wanted to come out on the other end as the heroes, the rescuers of the day. They made themselves messiahs. They made themselves the messianic figure in my particular life, and initially I was inclined to imagine that maybe this is just what God is doing, but it became evident as time progressed that that's not what's going on. First and foremost, the very laments that I had in my heart in refusing this job opportunity in the first place. I tabled them, and they were aware of them even without me raising them. Like, you don't get to know how skilled a person is and then just plonk them in admin, just plonk them in some job that does not make sense. You don't get to be privy to a person's suite of talents and then just throw them somewhere without you being outwardly, overtly, and obviously malicious. You don't get to be aware of what a person can do and then just throw them underneath like heaps of paper to go and file. You understand what I'm saying? You like, on that day you were actively and outwardly malicious, and I was aware of that. I was aware, like, I've got family members that work. I have a cousin that works, first and foremost, I had a family member that at some point, shortly after losing my job at MTN, was working for Vodacom. And they refused to help me get in, even though I was in the telecommunication space, and at that stage, I only had mere months of a gap in my CV, mere months. Now it's been 10 years. I've got another cousin where there was a recruitment drive of project managers in their company, and she saw it fit not to recommend my CV. Like, I've got people in my family that could have rightly placed me, appropriately placed me, and chose not to. They've been walking in so much sin, and now after 10 years, they're trying to get me to push paper. They're trying to, after 10 years, get me to just be buried under heaps of admin and have nobody basically hearken to my skills. But you see, remember I did a video, maybe like, 2 or 3 days ago, where it is that I was speaking, well, basically 2 or 3 videos from this one, I was speaking about how it is that even though, listen to this, right? Even though Some people in your ecosystem might not want to admit or acknowledge how skilled or talented or gifted you are. God will always raise up others that are like, this person is actually really good at what they do. I spoke about the Eben. Remember Eben? I used the name Eben. I gave the name of that employee at MTN, Eben, a guy who, in the heat of my former boss's incendiary activity against me, where she was lying about how well I'm performing or lack thereof, there were other people in the organization singing praises to my name, and this Eben guy was privy to some of this conversation, and Eben went on right ahead and told me when I was leaving, right, when I was exiting the building at the turnstiles. He was like, Karabo, how are you, a colored guy? And he was like, some people really underestimate people in these streets, but Karabo, you are doing so well, people are speaking so well of you. And I was shocked out of my mind, because my boss at the time was literally treating me like I was underperforming and I was the scum of her particular team, whereas Eben was communicating to me what rather the stakeholders in the business feel about my delivery. Eben was telling me about how the stakeholders in the building rather have a different opinion of me, and he improved my heart. He made me feel better. So Eben made me feel better, okay? Yeah, I spoke about that in that other video. At length, I unpacked it, so you would have to listen to all that to gauge that story. But basically, the heart of that particular matter, the heart of that story was that even in an environment where somebody is unprepared to acknowledge your skills and how good you are, there are always others with their ears on the ground, listening for your giftedness, that are willing to admit it, and they will likely come forward and rescue you from the grain of insults that keep coming at you from a particular individual that doesn't want to acknowledge where you're coming from. Okay, yeah, well, I had Ebens in my life, like one or two of them from what the Lord showed me. So first and foremost, my curriculum vitae is detailed and it has a lot in it. I worked at some point, I gained all that experience, I garnered for myself all that understanding. So therefore, anybody at all in their right mind would not put me in an admin job. Even after 10 years of unemployment, there are women that quit their jobs to go and raise some children, that went back to corporate South Africa after a season, and nobody insulted them with starting from that level. Nobody. So I'm no different from like a stay-at-home mom that decides she wants to go back to work. Only difference is that my gap in my CV, I didn't want it. It was given me by pressure, false witness, and suffering, like persecution, tests, trials, whatever. That's what put the gap there. But I'm no different than a woman that would have stayed at home to just get her children to the point of being in late primary, only for her to return to corporate. Okay, These men and these women who go back to work after a season of being unemployed, they send their CVs with that gargantuan 10-year gap in them, and people respect what experience they had historically. But yeah, they might not necessarily start where it is that they would have been if at all they'd stayed in the market, but people tend to not insult them to a point of that level of regression. All right, and God has been opening up my eyes to the fact that in and of myself, the gap in my CV is not like people are unaware of it. It's not like people, recruitment agencies and whatnot, have never seen something like that before. There are plenty of people that are able to reignite their careers, and yes, they do sometimes take a step back, a little bit of a pay cut, or maybe, one job level regression, but not like I told you, this pay is more than half what I used to earn at MTN, like literally more than half what it is that I used to earn. That kind of regression, that God was like over literally my dead body. He died for me, and even he said over my dead body, like, yo, when God has your back, he has your back, he has your back. Like, I not only did this individual that gave me this job, first of all, I said I don't want it. I then got yelled at, right? Not by that individual, but by my own mom, who pressured me into accepting it. I took it, okay? And in the run-up to me rejecting this, I communicated, I explained at length to this family member that offered me this opportunity why I should not be put in this environment. And one of the reasons that I gave was that in the past, when people have tried to demote me, it has ended so horribly. It has ended so horribly. There was a time when I was placed in some kind of a start-up, stipendee, intern, admin, don't know what in the world was going on at Wits University, and it ended horribly because of the way that I was being treated in that environment. Like, at some point, I even had some woman yell at me for half an hour because of the fact that once I started working, I was so skilled. I was so good at what I did that people who were much more senior than me got sufficiently intimidated enough to plot and scheme. And one woman literally locked me in her office for half an hour and just told me where to get off. I went to my car to cry. Things eventually got to a point where people stopped responding to my emails because of my follow-through, because of how much I was delivering on the job. They deliberately sabotaged me by making it appear as if though I did not pull my act together. Like the main dude that was running that place was starting to lean on me so much that he would go to me instead of them to basically get deliverables given to him. And these people hated that so much that they persecuted me on some umusha, and she's getting us yelled at by our boss. She's getting us, disciplined, rebuked by our boss. So they started to essentially hold back. And one of them literally locked me in her office for half an hour. And I explained that to this woman, where I am too skilled. I am too skilled to be chilling in a place where I'm pushing paper. I am going to bring forth the best that I can bring in that little position. And that little position, the best in it, is going to get me harassed. Like in that other company, in meetings, I would literally get asked something in a meeting. So basically it's my turn to answer a question that was asked me. And I would answer that question, and before I am done, I would be made to shut up. I would speak and somebody would interject because of just never mind my eloquence, but how on the ball I was. They hated the answers I gave them. Like, you would ask me a question, and when I give you an answer, you then interject in my mouth. That was the level of sabotage and pushback I endured in that environment. That was the level of sabotage and pushback that I endured in that environment as a result of how hard it was to work, to a point where people stopped responding to my emails when I was following up. Essentially, they made it impossible for me to work. It's like, if at all I'm out here trying to follow up on stuff and nothing is happening, what's the point? It's like stuff it's just gonna hang. They had no respect, and then I had to keep on giving paisa. I had to keep on going to their boss on some, I asked and nothing's giving. I was being deliberately sabotaged. So I walked. I left. I was prepared to stay there until they essentially promoted me, gave me an increase, whatever, saw my potential, put me in the right position. I was prepared to stay. But I ended up leaving. Why? Because I was not enabled to do my job. I was not enabled. I was harassed and sabotaged until I left. And upon leaving, that's what I endured. I explained all that to this family member, that if you put me in this lonely position, the risk is very real and alive, that the colleagues where I am going to be working are going to start slowly but surely sabotaging me. God has always blocked an environment where I have been regressed. He has always stopped it. He has always yanked me out of that environment. He has always basically rebuked those that put me in that position by making it such that even they couldn't stomach my presence in that place. I warned that person. I warned this family member. I told them, admin. Because it's not gonna end well. It's not gonna end well. I end up walking and so this time around, I'm not the one that acted a fool. I'm not the one this time around that left. I'm not the one that quit. I'm not the one that essentially walked away, because how in the world am I supposed to work here? It's not conducive. That job was not going to work out at Wits. Why? Because I was going to be sabotaged to a point of looking like I'm underperforming. They squeezed me out even before I left. I just walked away before they fired me. It's that basic. They made it such that it was so impossible for me to do my job. It was so impossible for me to do my job that at some point I was going to be let go. They included, like, the two men who were my bosses were actively involved in sabotaging me, even though they recruited me. It was their boss that was giving them a hard time because of how much I was following through on their deliverables. I told this chick that, I told her, and she insisted. And so I told myself, I'm gonna humble myself. That's why I even did that video where I was speaking about how it is that maybe I should just take it in my stride that I'm going to be Mam Doris. Mam Doris is a woman that I described as the kind of person that works a job and stays in the same position for 10 years without asking for a promotion, nothing. She just does enough. I wanted to be Mam Doris so I don't endure persecution at the hands of colleagues. But then I spoke against Mam Doris because that is the work of laziness, and God does not like laziness. God does not love it. He despises it. Yeah. I told myself I was going to be Mam Dorisi because I was scared of enduring volume 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 of the same situations that I've endured, with people trying to retract me back to admin. And guess who hooked me up with that silly job at Wits? It was my mom. The same woman of which named Sizile to become an executive. Why are you trying to make me push paper when you know what my skills are? When I was working there, some dude even was like, where's Haitsenko MTN? What exactly happened? Because you are too skilled to be working this job. One woman was like, you are so smart. Why are you in this job? And then a couple of colleagues on the side of that sabotaged me until I quit. They sabotaged me until I quit. I told this chick, I told her, well, this year is not going to end well. I'm a colleague's wam. Bazongi niggas are grief. I'm in the wrong job. With my skills level, I can only be with people that are either at my level or with me being slightly lower than them. But I cannot be so much lower than them that they would then feel like when I start to super perform in ways that they just don't. That's just the way that people are. The only way that I'm going to be respected and adored by colleagues, or at least left to exist, is if I'm in a job that makes sense for my skills level. Whatever envy or jealousy might spur from that space, it's just going to be the kind of competitive vibe that you pick up from a colleague, but not enough to cause sabotage. Like at that exquisite height. Not enough to cause that kind of sabotage. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah. So stop trying to put me in admin jobs that are such a start, that are so backward, that are so regressed, that mangifika phambili manje abantu bazongilimaza indaba yokuthi apparently I'm out of my place to be so well spoken, out of my place to be so on the ball, out of my place to be so high performing. Like, yeah, I'm expected to basically be stumbling. I get it. Like when you start a certain job, you are expected to still be learning the ropes. When you have already learned the ropes and you are at this point flying, soaring like an eagle, instead of crawling en route, starting to walk, people are going to look at you like, Wahlanga, you're bizarre, and they will mistreat you because you are over-skilled, over-qualified, and over-performing in an environment when you're expected to be at a particular skills level. Like clockwork, it has happened like that before. I told this person, ignore all that, insisted me not making me some paper pusher. Well, my curriculum vitae, alright? My CV is my CV, okay? Yeah, anybody that reads that CV would look at it and be like, but why are you applying for this job? At Wits University, the man who interviewed me and the woman, the first question they asked me was, you are literally too overqualified and you are too skilled for this job. If people can say that and yet still hire you, what are they thinking? I was literally banking on this man and this woman refusing to give me that job because I am too qualified. I was hoping they would make the sound decision, because why did I even go to that interview in the first place? I was pressurized. Like all of these jobs, I've been getting forced to do them by family. Yeah, forced by me for an interview to go and be an administrator, a paper pusher, somebody that's going to be ordering digestive biscuits for some man or some woman who has got to have their schedule guarded on their behalf. Like somebody that's going to be scheduling meetings and booking parking type establishment thing. Yeah, when you go and you grab somebody as skilled as I am and you put them in that kind of and they rock up to interview for that kind of a job, it is indeed the right question to ask. Kaze, why under heaven would you want to take this job? I was so the way that I navigated that interview was so as to disincentivize and uninspire the man and the woman in question from hiring me. Because if at all they reject the job for me, if they say, no, you can't work here, sorry, you're too skilled, then in that way I have an excuse. But they said no. They interviewed me and they said no. So I guess, whoops, next time, hey, yeah. I was hoping that they would not let me work because I didn't want the job, but I was pressured into taking it. Instead, one of the people there was a man, and this dude was looking at me some kind of way. Or something. He became exploitative. He became opportunistic. His agenda was evil. And so he insisted on hiring me. And he had crash. That's what I'm getting at. He wanted me around. And so he, even though he had at the interview said, no, sorry, we're probably not going to give you this job because you're too qualified, he changed his mind somewhere along the way on some I want to hear. Because somebody with whom to fraternize on the building. And I started working that job and it didn't end well. Especially considering I wasn't trying to reciprocate that guy's fraternization in whatever thing that he was doing. Yes, like it, y'all. And the exploitation by women, like the insistence that make it start from scratch. I've tried, y'all. I've tried to never mind start that. I couldn't have done anything for it. But it was a contract aiming to become permanent. If I could prove myself, maybe they might have given me salary e bonahalang. Mara mole no go tshegisa shem. Ne bang fa 3,000 rands ka month. It was funny. It was hilarious. It was more like an internship, and even then an unpaid one. All they will give you is maybe transport money to make sure that you've got petrol. They gave me grifka parking they gave me grief ka e bathong ha ona ntho e ba sang fang grief ka yona mone ke pakateng ne ke dula ke gasetswa ke security. At some point they almost clamped my wheels. I was like, dude, I work here. Ke sebetsa mona sheba access card, bona access card ka fela ifeletse. I work here, you can't be clamping me. I'm allowed to park lana. Kodwa my bosses were dragging their feet to give me parking, to basically get me officially given parking, because I wasn't officially a permanent member of their staff. So it doesn't matter that I drive a car, because indeed that job belongs to the kind of person that's out there using a taxi every day. But I had my own car. I've been through hell and back. That's what I'm getting at. I explained this to this family member of mine, and she insisted that I send her my CV and interview in this regard. Fine, I gave her my CV, but guess who made like Eben? Her own staff, her own people, the people who interviewed me. First of all, she said to me, "Batla go founela ka Mantaha. Job interview is about to happen then." They just like they didn't call me. But ba habang founela. Here it is that their boss is telling them, please call this person for an interview. Please call this person for an interview. And they literally ignored her. They ignored her. They didn't call her until I kept on sending her the WhatsApp. On some habang phonele. They said they're gonna call me, they're not calling. They said they're gonna call me, they're not calling. They said they're gonna call me, they're not calling. They said basically I followed up with her so much. If anything, the first day I did not even send her a WhatsApp because I thought that maybe they'll get back to me. She told me they'll call me Monday, either Monday or Tuesday. By midday Tuesday, when they hadn't called, that's when I sent a WhatsApp, and she was like, "Oh, I'm shocked they didn't call you. I thought that maybe the reason why you didn't WhatsApp me was precisely because they called you and you're just waiting for the interview." I was like, "No, nobody out here told me anything." I had to follow up with her like 3 times, and by 3 times I mean over 3 days. The next 3 days I would be like, "Habasong phonele batho ba hao." Her staff dragged their feet. Her staff was like Eben. Her staff dragged their feet. Her staff looked at my CV, my very long, like windy, mendy bendy CV, and they were like, "Okay, so this is a vacancy, it's open. We need to hire somebody." And mind you, I told this woman, I was like, when I was busy rejecting it, before I was forced to take it, I told her, gave this opportunity to a young aspiring person in this country, some bright-eyed and bushy-tailed 26-year-old that is going to be happy for the opportunity. Like, give it to her or him, because you are taking away jobs from those who need the skills to train them up. That is as skilled as I am this job. Already South Africa is suffering from a skills exodus, y'all. We are already suffering from a skills shortage. How are you gonna go grab a very skilled person? Admin. Guys. Anyway, whatever. So this person insisted on that, right? So then her colleagues were supposed to be the ones to call me for this job interview. They didn't call me because why didn't her colleagues call me? I will tell you why her colleagues did not call me initially. It's because they were dealing with CVs up to that date of these 24, 5, 6, 7-year-olds that were vying for that particular job. Okay? And they likely had been either interviewing them or planning to interview them or whatever. And then next thing rocks up this big, beefy CV of this 40-year-old woman in the midst of this pile, and this woman throws it to them like a brick on the desk on some call her for this interview for this job. The staff are then like, "Okay, sharp boss," and then they look at the CV and they're like, "Ebato, ke mo boss ebatla rona re interview motho with this kind of level of skill. So what I believe might have happened is that these ladies called everyone else for this interview. Bafonele wonke umuntu else for this interview. Do you understand? That was appropriate for that job. Just like I said, I'm Bionigeza some, up and coming, young lady. Give her the opportunity to gain experience. 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3. She will be around for you. And there's not going to be a problem with staff to turn over. There's not going to be a flight risk, because Lamuntu is just going to be grateful to have a job. That's going to suffer severely from a lack of job satisfaction. Don't do this thing. Do not do this thing. Like proper. Do not insist on basically being my messiah, girl, when you cannot offer me a job that makes sense. If you don't have an opening in your company that is more aligned to my skills, don't hire me. in this one. You are insisting on hiring me in this one. You're senior enough in that organization. You're senior enough in that company to give me a better job than this one. There are other openings that are better than this one that are most suited to my skills, but you're insisting on putting me in this one. Or at least something close, dog. Don't throw me in that job. I am certain more LinkedIn, there's something else that is available that can be more appropriate for my skills level. I am sure. Because she's, like I said, she's senior enough to place me elsewhere. But nah, admin, that's what's good. So her staff, the HR as well as the woman that with whom I would have been working, are the ones that were to schedule the interview me. And they dragged their heavy South African feet. They dragged their feet, y'all. And it took me following up multiple times and her calling them on some wireless phone. Hey. Okay, there we go. Charge the phone to 20%. Hopefully I'll be able to speak my heart's content. I seriously doubt it. But anyway, yeah. No, where was I? Yes, employees out here being told why asked, this family member, they were asking her, I asked her because nobody was calling me, even though I was told I was going to get called for an interview. Like the way that I was supposed to start this job as in day before yesterday, essentially what was communicated was that you're going to get a call Monday, Tuesday. By Friday you should have been interviewed so that maybe by Monday you can start working or something of that nature. Okay, yeah, well, it is the next week on Wednesday and Guchulile. The whole week, the employees that were supposed to call me for the interview dragged their feet through the mud, did not call me. I had to follow up like a million times. Ultimately, their boss lady called them until after enough pressure on their heads, they called me. And even when the one lady called me, you could tell on the phone, y'all, like there was just so much lethargy in her voice, and it actually kind of discouraged me. She was like, "Hi, how are you, Karabo? Yeah, so there is an interview opening here for an admin job. Are you available perhaps on Friday?" Here, she was just like basically going through the modes, I could tell, and it discouraged me because usually when I get called by recruiters, they're like, "Hi, Karabo, how are you? Good. So there's an opening. When are you available? This is the interview." Like that's usually the chirpy sort of kind of, attitude that I tend to get. And this time around, it was like this person was just going through the modes. Okay, very well. Ultimately, the meeting does get scheduled, and I have the interview on a Friday, on last week Friday. That's when I had the interview, and on the phone in the interview, I was just being interviewed, etc. for the larger majority, in the back end as I was interviewing. And a lot of times throughout the interview, like one person kept saying, "Well, I mean, you already answered the next question. So I don't really have much else to say." The interview was quick, within like maybe 10-15 minutes. Okay. And I was told that, okay, we'll be in touch, like type setup thing. It's been dead quiet ever since. And what's especially taxing about how dead quiet it is, it's not so much that they haven't called me. It's that she hasn't. The person who organized this interview, the one that tried to get me this admin job in the family, she's the one that's been quiet. And for me, it's like you've gotten feedback from your staff, obviously. Your HR person and the person that was... also sitting in that interview, basically the whole panel, they obviously gave you feedback, like, duh, they must have, okay? So why are you quiet? And that's been the question that I've been asking Jesus Christ, right? So y'all, I did communicate that ever since pretty much sharing the fact that I got a job on the internet machine, I've been dealing with the severity of spiritual war attack. My body has been out of it, zapped out, tired body, head bobble, unable to keep my eyes open. The devil has been trying to get me to not pray. Now, before I even went for this before I even was organized this particular opportunity, because I had been pressurized into taking it and my heart was all sunken, I prayed feverishly all night long, like sometimes even pausing YouTube just to pray and pray and pray and pray. And I told you guys that I pray in tongues all day. Well, this is out here happening all night long, wee hours in the morning. And this one night, I literally pushed it up until 8 a.m. in the morning because I wanted to get rid of it. Basically, what was the premise of my prayer? in my spirit, I was saying to God, Father, if this is a counterfeit, if this is something that is going to never mind humiliate me, but just break my heart, if this is a strategy of darkness against me, stop it, block it, stop it, block it, like don't let it happen. And I prayed so hard. And yet the next morning, later on, I woke later on because I went to bed, I told you, at 8 a.m. in the morning. Later on, when I papamad and I checked my messages, here it is that this individual was still out, just still trying to schedule the interview. I had begged God to stop it. I asked the Lord, stop this. I don't want to work that admin job. The only way that I'm going to be set free from this wannabe contract is if this person that is insisting on giving me a job that does not make sense, if they pull out, they have to be the ones to pull out, because my mom is going to give me grief. You remember what happened at Wits? I cannot be the one to walk out on my own. I can't be the one to quit. I can't be the one to say no, because then I'm going to be threatened. So this individual has to be the one to break away. This individual has to be the one to make a decision that they don't want to do this with me. Then in that way, my mom's hands are tied. She can't give me pressure because it's not like anybody's out here trying to offer me something that apparently I'm rejecting. Okay, yeah, that was my prayer all night. Wankudwa, for 2 nights in a row, I prayed like this. I asked the Lord to get this thing out of my skin, to remove this thorn from my flesh. And I imagined God said, my grace is sufficient for you and my strength is made perfect in weakness. You're going to take this thing. You're going to see what I'm going to do with you. Because in the just a few hours later, I papama in the middle of sleep because, I papama. I checked my messages and there is a message saying, there's an interview scheduled for you. After all night prayer, guys, I pushed it to 8 a.m. I usually try to put myself to sleep at around 6:30 in the morning, right? So that at least I have some kind of semblance of having slept that night while the sun is still gone. It's been winter, so 6:30 is still kind of dark. But this time around, I pushed until 8 a.m. just praying, guys, praying. And in some portions of my prayers, I was not even listening to anything online. It was just me with God communing, because I had muted I had not muted YouTube per se, but I was listening to scriptures on a loop in a scripture meditation channel just to help my cause along the way. I just felt like I needed to pray over the situation, because something of it was not giving. And here it is that just hours from that all-night prayer where I'm thinking I'm bringing down strongholds, I get the call telling me that this is happening. I was like, okay, girl, when you've prayed that much and God is pushing you in that space anyway, clearly you are leaning on your own understanding. So just go with the flow. Go with the ebb and the flow. Let the Lord lead where the Lord will lead. Maybe this thing is going to suffice. Maybe it's going to give. But that's just the thing. Ughesha in the kingdom of darkness, or people when they are trying to push something that does not make any sense at all. Bazwe pusha anyway, but God is the one that ultimately stops it. Like Pharaoh, there was much prayer being done where that was concerned. There was much petition on behalf of the people of God being done by Moses and Aaron, and yet Pharaoh was pushing an agenda anyway, holding on to the people of God, right? So sometimes when you pray, asking for God to block something, stop it, when it happens anyway, don't imagine he didn't hear you. Sometimes it's just a matter of, with the heart of Pharaoh being hardened, a plague has to fall on Pharaoh to make him let the people of God go. Some people that are antagonizing the will of God on your life will sometimes be forced out the way. They have to be they're stubborn. Mankind is stubborn. It's written in God's word that the human heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Like this family member, I'm not saying that she's like the spawn of Satan or evil or whatever, but bottom line is she is an individual that knows me. She's known me all her life, all my life. We've known each other, and she knows what I can do. They were aware of my credentials, my skills. Not only that, she also had access to this WAD, this thick document that is my curriculum vitae. Sitting on top of that, having never ever had anybody working in the job that you're trying to give me with that kind of work experience, you are committing a travesty. It is overt, it's clear. So don't do this evil thing in the sight of God. Do not place a person in a company where you work, in your organization. Do not place a person in your company, in your organization, where it is that you work, in a job that does not make any sense for them, especially if, as a professing child of the living God, you are aware of the ill that's been done against this person. You know what wrong and what dirty has been done to this person. Do not then insist on humiliating them. The Bible says that the righteous will not be condemned when put to trial. Guys, I had a dream, like literally the day after I was told that the job interview is going to be scheduled, I'm going to get called. I had a dream of me standing in that company, like in a room in that company. And guys, my head was on backwards, my feet were on backwards, and my torso was facing front. It's like I was discombobulated. My head was backward and my feet were backward, but my body was, it was like basically the stuff of horror movies. And I had a dream of me looking like that while working there, with my feet backwards, head backwards, but me walking ahead. And when I woke up, I was like, God, I mean, fine, you're showing me that's not an environment I'm supposed to be in. I'm being forced. You know that I'm being forced to go and work there. I don't want to work there. So if my head is on backwards and if my feet are on backwards, what can I do? And then also, God, other dreams where it is that I was shown certain of my cousins that have hurt me, that have bewitched the living daylights out of me, priding themselves in the fact that I took that job. I ain't getting a choice. It's not like I wanted to. If I don't take it, I get yelled at, I get told all different kinds of threats, so I gotta stick around. So I found myself feeling kind of patronized by God, showing me that me being in that environment would be like my head screwed on backwards and my feet being made to face the other way. I was like, I asked you to block it. I asked you to stop it. I can't not take this job. But that's the thing. When a child of God is being forced to be somewhere where they're not supposed to be, and there's no way for them to get out of that, the Lord in and of himself is going to then take up that cause. Jesus will be the one to take up the cause of that saint of his. The Lord will be the one to say, my daughter is not going to go there. My son is not going to go there. I don't want my child in that environment. It is just a stubborn Pharaoh holding on to the people of God. That's what I'm getting at. And my family members in this particular juncture, I'm much like Pharaoh. So here it is that I go for this interview with my head screwed on backwards and my feet facing the opposite direction, with people out here trying to laugh at me, trying to make myself feel excited about something that I knew I didn't want to take. Even coming here on YouTube talking about how it is that, the Lord availed an avenue of escape for me, knowing that I didn't want it at first, but then imagining that maybe this is what God is doing anyway. Because the thing that got me to a point where I thought that God was doing this anyway was me praying all night, like I said, in tongues, and frankly pushing it all the way up until the sun is out and yawning and everything, 8 a.m. for 2 nights in a row. And it giving nothing. I already pray all night long, but barely ever do I push myself to the point of the sun rising. Here guys, I did all that to no avail. So I thought that this is what God was doing. Only for an Eben-like structure to pop up. First and foremost, the people who called me for the interview called me after they were getting constantly followed up with, because they just looked at my CV and they were not even trying to listen to me at all. Ultimately, they called me. The person on the phone sounds disinterested, but hey, whatever, we gotta go through it because our boss told us to interview you. And then after the interview happens, Guatula. And while I can understand maybe the people who interviewed still kind of waiting to give feedback to the candidate and whatnot, I was supposed to get feedback from the family member, the person who organized this interview. They were supposed to come back to me and be like, Karabo, this is what's going on, we should hear. And mind you, this person, I was chatting with them pretty much almost every single day on WhatsApp in the run-up to the interview, and now it's just dead quiet. It's like I've been ghosted. There is weird activity coming from that end, and I thought that maybe Karabo, relax, just chill, recline your chair, wait, because this is a done deal. It's a guaranteed thing. Not only that, busy motoona, and this is an interview process. It can take time sometimes for people to get back to you. It's only been 2 days. I thought to just kind of let it go and wait for time to progress and see what in the world is going down. But then the Lord woke me up, not just this morning, but the night before and the night before then, telling me, Karabo, you are still in danger. You're still in hot water. Essentially, all the things that you were fearing, you are about to, that all the things you feared and all the stuff that you imagined you're about to come up and have air concerning, they're not eradicated. The threat of suicide, I keep seeing it. It's a thing. The Lord is showing me also that the threat of these licentious men is still a thing. Men being on some tit for tat, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. People feeling like they've won. Curses coming from cousins and whatnot. I keep seeing a lot of the same stuff that I was enduring when there appeared to be no hope coming for me in sight. Especially the threat of death on my life. And I'm like, God, if at all I'm gonna be working a job soon, why is this a thing? And then 2 days ago, I get yelled at for uploading, not so much yelled at, but basically rebuked for sharing that I got a job, because it was as good as done. The interview was literally communicated to me as just a formality that I'm gonna work. So that's why I already shared the testimony in advance. Type establishment thing. And then 2 days two days ago, I then get this talking to where it is that I'm basically being told, you need to stop with this Christianity thing. you need to stop with this online thing, because frankly, I've been lamenting the past 2 days, and my videos have been basically complaining about the fact that I'm a 40-year-old woman. If I want to do YouTube, I will do YouTube. If I want to evangelize using this platform, I will do what I want to do. I'm not breaking any laws. Let me do what I want to do, right? The past 2 days I've been lamenting about that. Y'all know if you've been listening to me consistently. Well then today, which is day 3 in this lament, I thought that yesterday's video was going to make me feel better. Remember how I said, Uti abantu, when they want to make out of you a doormat, when they say lie on the floor that we might walk all over you, let them walk, girl, let them walk. Because God will judge them. At the end of the day, we're going home. You are the Philadelphian church. Don't let anybody steal your crown. I thought I'd be cool. After yesterday's message. But when something is a burden to God and something is an urgency to God, He will make it a burden and an urgency to you. He won't let you rest. The Lord will not let you rest until you finally happen upon the epiphany that you must happen upon. God will not give you peace until you are in the right epiphany, until you are in the right state of mind. What He is doing, He is going to discomfort you into ultimately walking in it. You will figure stuff out. God is not going to leave you out on a limb or disquieter all night long. He has a thing about making a king uncomfortable all night until he does what he wants. You will remember what happened with Xerxes in the book of Esther. The king Xerxes, how it is that he couldn't sleep all night. He was jostled until he ended up reading some book, and then he found the story of Mordecai and realized that some dude was not rewarded for something that he had done on his behalf in the past, and it caused Mordecai to ultimately get exalted by Xerxes, right? He was on that, is it camel, horse, whatever, with the signet ring, and he went through the town. That had to be the preceding acts that were that Mordecai walked in before ultimately Esther would expose Haman, that already by the time that Haman gets exposed, the king would already have a very high regard for Mordecai. And what happened? God had to jostle the king all night long with restlessness until he read some old book that was dusty, that he never would have read if it was not for God disquieting him in the night. Similarly too, if you think about Pharaoh, right, when he was holding on to Sarah, despite Sarah being the woman of promise to give birth to Isaac in the future, he actually holding the woman in his household as a concubine or whatever, while Abraham is mom. And God plagued and troubled Pharaoh until Pharaoh let Sarah go. He did the same thing with Abimelech, who was holding on to Sarah, troubled him in the night, could not rest, could not sleep, plagued him with I think it was frogs, or was it mumps on his face or whatever, but he had to let Sarah go. God has a thing about wrestling a person all night long until they finally realize what they gotta do. And I was wrestled like that. I could not have peace. I had spoken. I thought that I needed to be a doormat. I thought, remember even the story with Mom Dorcas, I'm just gonna sit there in the office and just accept my fate and be this kind of person that is okay, even though really I've been severely demoted, blah blah, all that jazz. I thought that I was just going to either be a Mom Dorcas or what is this? Yeah, guys, I argue. I can't, y'all, you've been listening to me this entire time, alright? Yeah, how it is that I've been explaining my way around the situation. Yeah, well, the past 2 days were especially taxing in explaining my way around the situation, the way that God so did not want this thing. Not only did he, not only was I disquieted all throughout the days in even explaining away me working a job that does not make sense, but I then also got persecuted for sharing that I got the job, and upon explaining away my pain in the persecuted state, I still did not get to a conclusion that was sounded like my spirit never rested. My soul never rested until literally just, I can't even say that last night. My soul never rested until this morning when I woke up. Or was it after now? I woke up in the morning this time around. Because I'm trying to change my hours, right? Because I'm expecting to start a new job, right? Yeah, that's what's good. No, only this morning when I woke up, did I come to a conclusion as to what I need to do. And I believe this is it. I believe this is the place where God wants me. He wrestled me in my spirit all these days that have come and gone until I've reached this environment. He blocked it. He heard my prayers. He heard me. The all-night prayer, the petition to block this thing because ayikho yami ngifanele. Yeah, indaba ukuthi abantu people are trying to make me start again from some strange place that does not make any sense. Mengayifuni this job, kodwa ngiyaforciwa ngisho. Yeah, I'm being forced type establishment thing. I prayed about it and the Lord heard me. Instead of this time around me being the one to walk out because more spacing, the Lord sees my pain, I've endured too much. He caused a little bit of an Eben to rise up in the organization where it is that this family member works. And Eben, remember Eben is the dude that gave me praises where they were due, even though nobody else was willing to admit it. About 2 days ago, after the interview, the day after the interview, the Lord said to me, Eben, remember I used Eben as an example, the colored dude from MTN, whose name I gave as Eben. Yeah, the Lord basically made it clear to me that there is an Eben in that space. So in other words, among the people who interviewed me, or perhaps all of the people who interviewed me, in that space there is an Eben. So somebody that is singing praises and somebody that is admitting, giving credit where it is due, therefore highlighting the exceptional travesty of recruiting a person with a thick wad for a CV in so a lowly position. Like, it doesn't make sense. Give this job to somebody else. And on top of that, if you really want this person to work for the company, if you really want to bring this individual in, if you really have that much of a burden for them, put them somewhere else. Like the very thing that I've been saying, this individual is senior enough in the space where she is employed, where it is that she has a 9 to 5, right? That she can pull in a different favor for me. There is essentially a more fit for purpose job for me in that space that she is absolutely refusing to recommend my curriculum vitae to somewhere else where other people will interview me and be like, thank you for recommending, we'll take her. My family members across literally the board have all been employed at organizations where they could call somebody a favor for someone, said, Karabo, send me your CV. And they've chosen not to for years, including my own immediate family. I had a family member that worked at Vodacom very shortly after I lost my job at MTN. I could have quickly been scooped up by Vodacom, quickly. And that person was an executive at the time at Vodacom. Executive. I could have quickly gotten scooped up by Vodacom before I was even on the credit bureau, before I lost everything to a point where I could not afford to pay my debts. I could have quickly gotten scooped up by Vodacom. It didn't happen. Like I told you, there was a cousin of mine that worked at a company where they had a project management recruitment drive, where they were starting a new department and they needed PMs and business analysts. And nothing. Labantu have for years been able to place me in companies where they've worked and they've chosen not to. Evidence of the fact that they also could have indeed pulled in those favors. They have pulled in favors for kids in the family that matriculated. They've been getting jobs in their companies. Literally, the situation is so bad that they even hooked up with jobs. The boyfriend, not even husbands. The boyfriend, like my cousins. Like you out here having a cousin of yours date a guy for like 4 years. And the dude then gets fired or retrenched or whatever. And then in 3 months, this guy is working at my uncle's firm. So you are out here hooking up an outsider of the family, albeit dating your daughter, fine, we get it. Albeit dating your niece, we get it. Fine, ujola ne auntie. So that's how you know this person. Mara this is not flesh and blood. They were not around. You didn't see their diapers. Somebody else changed their diapers. You're gonna go and place a dude that is dating your daughter, your uncle, your niece, somebody that's dating auntie, your sister. You're gonna hook them up with a job and leave Karabo out on a limb? Like, that's literally what's been going on with my family for a decade. Through my family members, and they watched me rot. They watched me rot while hooking up strangers, boyfriends and girlfriends, and cousins from other mothers, like proper, like next door neighbors, cats. Actually got jobs through my family members instead of me. Labantu know my skills. Mara, the world hates disciples. The scriptures are so clear. The world hates disciples enough to a point where you will hook up your next door neighbor's cat with a job in your company rather than your Christian niece, your Christian brother, your Christian auntie, your Christian sister. It's that bad. Like, the situation is literally that horrific. Yeah. So this family member has pity made her at least set me up in this particular capacity. But whatever it is that they are all holding on to, has made them insist that I start at like the bottom, doing random strange menial tasks type establishment thing. Yeah. So I've been afraid to mention that this is what's going on because I thought that this was what God was doing. But with the level of ghosting that I'm now enduring, and never mind ghosting, you see, if I was just ghosted, I might just have kept quiet and said nothing. For me, it's the fact that I am being told even not to post on YouTube. Literally, that is becoming a problem. Me continuing with the ministry, that's the thing that's making me come out and now expose this nonsense for what it is. I am being bullied at this particular juncture, and it is the bullying that caused God to be like, girl, you're still in danger. I never intended for you to be in this ecosystem. I have heard the prayers that you prayed. All all that you have done has not been in vain. You did not just lose your job, innocent as a dove. Do you understand? And only for you to start again from scratch like you're guilty. It's the thing that I've been lamenting about, like, righteous indignation. I'm innocent. For me to start again at that particular level, with the level of innocence that I am in, is to infer that I am guilty. It's to basically say that I'm taking whatever it is that I need to take. Ngoba umuntu ofana nami akakwazi ukuncenga. Beggars can't be choosers. Yeah, like to get to a point where you are saying of yourself, beggars can't be choosers. I'm not a beggar. I'm sitting in righteous indignation. I was unjustly, what do you call this, ripped out from a career. I should not have to start so lowly. Anyway, whatever. So what raised up for me, because the Lord saw that here I'm being bullied and I'm gonna say, I don't have a say. Essentially, the humiliation of this family member was what needed to happen. Somebody in her staff was like, look, we understand the compassion you might feel for this individual, the gap in their CV. It's sad that a woman would be out of work for 10 whole years, at the end of the day, and we live in a country crash up against women. But are we not doing her a misfavor and injustice by placing her in this space? If at all you're truly burdened for her, why don't you recommend her to John Jimmy? Why don't you recommend her to Team Yamatha? Because Team Yamatha is looking for this kind of opening, and this is more appropriate for this individual. We interviewed her, and based on the interview, she could be liked by Martha. Jimmy might actually like her. Hey? Like Mangjabu, Pinky, Petrosi might actually really like her. Give Petrosi the CV and ask him just to see her. He doesn't have to hire her, He doesn't have to take her. Type establishment thing with Petrosi. He can just Petrosi doesn't have to take her, but just give her CV to Petros. Give her CV to Petros and see if Petrosi won't be willing to interview her to fill the vacancy in his team, because this is more appropriate for her. Right? That organization, I seriously doubt that there's project managers there in. I don't think they are. They have project managers, but there are certainly job openings that are more appropriate for my skills level. And it is also within an industry where it is that I have some qualifications in that regard. Right? I was studying for a degree, but I also did get some other NQF level certifications that are fit and proper for the financial services industry. And so it is possible that I could indeed get taken up in a different environment in that space. So I believe what happened, because the Lord told me about, not Petros, what is this, about Eben. He basically highlighted to me that there is going to be an Eben-like hindrance to the strange insistence of this family member of mine to push her particular paper. But that Eben hindrance is going to challenge her to essentially give me over to somebody else. And this somebody else that she will be told to give me over to, because of hoarding me, like I said earlier, boxes from 1992, having memorabilia of a person that's passed away, because of hoarding me and wanting to control my life, this individual is going to flat out refuse to hand my CV over to Petros. It is not that Petros would be unprepared to see me. It is that it is within the prerogative of this particular family member to give me over to Petros, and Petros would then make his own decision, right? Petros would then make his own decision as to whether or not he wants to interview me. Of course, Petros is a hypothetical character that I'm making up right now, but Petros represents the department head of a department vacancy open that is more fit for purpose for me. Now, in order for me to get hired after 10 years in my CV, I would have to come highly recommended from somewhere else. Do you understand? And there has been a high recommendation, but it has not come from my family member, who is the boss, basically the head of this particular, the person that spearheaded this mission to get me hired in this position, right? She and she alone is in a, look, her people basically said to her, we understand your passion, your compassion for a woman with a 10-year gap in her CV. We understand, Nati as abafazi, we would not want umuntu nje to be out on a limb namsebenzi. But lo awukho appropriate, lo muntu is too skilled. So why don't I recommend it to Petros? Why not recommend her to Petros? Because Petros has another job. But remember, this person already had intentions as in 100% sober, where I am concerned. So she would never have recommended me to Petros. My family members have been ignoring me for years on end. They've just left me to rot. Do you understand what I'm saying? Including hiring other people from Ngaphandle Lapaya. Including helping strangers outside of the family get jobs. Therefore, they do not want me recovered to where it is that I was before. Bafuna nje to keep me in a grain. Meaning that this individual could have already from the get-go, upon seeing my CV, she's smart enough, been like, no, this job, for Karabo, no. Kitsiba in this department, such and such people. And then maybe pull in a word for me. The individual in that other department does not have to call me. But it goes a long way when somebody pulls in a good word for you. When somebody basically brings you as one who comes in highly recommended. Not only was this person able to, initially from the get-go, without putting me through this silly interview, able to tell Petro, say, consider Karabo. Not only was that a thing, but now she also has backup. She has got the 2 people who interviewed me on some. Petro, say, you should see her. We interviewed her. She's really good. Give her a chance. You don't even have to permanently hire her. Just take her on board for like 3 months. And if you like her, keep her. But if you don't, you can just get rid of her. However, this is a vacancy you've had open for a minute and you've been looking for this kind of person. Just see. You have nothing to lose, dude. Like Papa Lumfa's Donna Akaka said, she hasn't worked for 10 years. She's like, yeah, you have nothing to lose. And Petrosi could have then been like, okay, let me see her. And then make his own decision. He could decide to take me or not, right?